समझ नहीं आ रहा अपने सैलरी इंक्रीमेंट का क्या करूं।
बेटा इतना क्या सोच रहा है? अपने म्यूचुअल फंड्स के एसआईपी का टॉप अप करा ले। दिस इज द राइट टाइम।
क्या? समझ में नहीं आया।
बेटा इतना क्या सोच रहा है? अपने म्यूचुअल फंड्स का एसआईपी टॉप अप करा ले। दिस इज द राइट टाइम।
अब समझा।
Mutual fund investments are subject to market risks. Read all scheme-related documents carefully.
Pakistan was having its equivalent of, I'm oversimplifying it, its equivalent of Pravasi Pakistani Divas. Like this was like a get together where the army chief went to speak. Now, Pravasi Bharati Divas, every year you will not see any army chief going and speaking, and even if an army chief is invited or is given a slot, army chief will talk about the army, will not talk about the politics or the destiny of the country or the ideology of the country. That is the difference, essential difference in Pakistan. And Asim Munir, by speaking to this audience and the manner in which he has spoken, has once again underlined a couple of points that are central to Pakistan. One, that Pakistan is an ideological state. Second, that if it's an ideological state, the guardians of its ideology is the army of Pakistan. It's not the politicians, it's not the constitution, it is the army of Pakistan. And number three, everything that happens in Pakistan, Islam is central to all of that. In fact, he says in this short speech also, at least short speech that's available to us, you can see we published it uncut, what's available to us on our YouTube channel. We will also share a link with you. He says that Pakistan is only one of the two nations in the history of humankind which have been formed on the basis of the Kalma, on the basis of the Islamic principle, that this is an Islamic country. One, he says, is the state of Medina, which the Prophet himself set up, and 1300 years later, the state of Pakistan. So that's how he sets out to define the ideology of Pakistan, and then to say, and this is protected by Pakistani army, we are there to protect it, right? You don't have to worry. What is he telling you? He's making a political statement. I told you the three principles that he has laid out. One, that Pakistan is an ideological state. Second, that if it's an ideological state, then the only institution that protects that ideology is the Pakistani army. And third, that the basis of everything, this ideology, Pakistan's army, is Islam. Now, he also speaks from a very special position, a very unique position. He's a Hafiz-e-Quran, means somebody who's memorized the Quran. That's why when he speaks, he keeps on dropping lines from the Quran Sharif and Islamic history and scriptures like a Maulvi, right? Now, I don't know any of those, but it sounds like he can recite them like a Maulvi, extempore as well. And I've seen many videos of his, including at army parades, etc., where he speaks, in fact, very often like an Islamic preacher. And you can understand why he's doing that and how he's doing that, because his father was Maulvi of a mosque called Masjid al-Quraysh at Dheri Hasanabad, which is on the outskirts of Rawalpindi. His father was also principal of this school. He had a job, he has a day job, which was as the principal of this school, but he was also a Maulvi of the local mosque, where he read out the Friday sermon as well. Asim Munir himself started his education at a traditional Islamic seminary at a madrasa called Markazi Madrasa Darul Tajweed in Rawalpindi. So he started there, but then went on to get modern education, went to Japan for school, and finally went to the military academy. There he won the Sword of Honor. He's one of the three Sword of Honor winners in the history of Pakistani army who became chiefs. The other two were Asif Nawaz Janjua and Jahangir Karamat. That said, those two did not quite have a brilliant tenure. Asif Nawaz Janjua died sort of mysteriously while in harness. He was still serving army chief. He was on a drive from Islamabad to Murree, died on the way. And there were many theories and stories about him, but did not complete his tenure. That's rare in Pakistan. Usually in Pakistan, the army chief can go on forever, or as long as he wishes to carry on, or until somebody decides to cut his tenure short, either by blowing up a plane or by jailing and trying him for treason and exiling him, as was the case for Musharraf. Otherwise, in Pakistan, army chiefs only go when they want to go. That's why if you look at the history of Pakistan and India has had many more army chiefs than Pakistan's, because Pakistani army chiefs keep on getting extensions and carrying on unless they also become chief martial law administrators, in which case it can go on for much longer. They don't need any extensions. Jahangir Karamat also was very highly reputed Pakistani general. I know at that point of time there were lots of talks between the Indian side and the Pakistani side. Our DGMO and their DGMO, that's a position in which Jahangir Karamat also served. He was held in high regard by the Indian side as well. Once again, could not complete his tenure. He was fired, a rare case of being fired by an elected prime minister. So Nawaz Sharif fired him. Asif Nawaz Janjua served between 91 and 93. Jahangir Karamat between 96 and 98. Very short tenures for Pakistani chiefs. This one now, the third sword of honor, has at least covered some bases. He had constitutional amendments carried out in Pakistan, according to which the tenure of the Pakistani army chief now is 5 years. He was appointed chief in November 2022. So he's got 5 years from then, and who knows then what happens with extensions later. Now the question is, I can repeat to you for 2 minutes the highlights of what he's saying. So one thing that he's saying is that we are different. He's defining the ideology of Pakistan. He was saying, why did Pakistan come into being? Why did our forefathers create Pakistan? That's because we are totally different from the Hindus. Our forefathers figured that we are different from the Hindus in every possible aspect of life. I'm quoting him now. We are different from Hindus in every possible aspect of life: religion, customs, traditions, thoughts, ambitions. We are different in any way. And that, he said, was the foundation of the two-nation theory. That's how Pakistan came into being. The second thing he says, that you overseas Pakistanis, when you live overseas, don't forget that you belong to this incredible nation, which is one of the only two nations. He says, in history, only two nations have been formed on the basis of the kalma, on the basis of the Islamic principle. One was Medina, formed by the Prophet himself, and 1300 years later, Pakistan. And you can hear it when he's speaking, crowd often bursts into the slogan of Pakistan ka matlab kya? La ilaha illallah. That's kalma for you. So he's driving up that emotion. And then he says, while you're living overseas under a different culture, never forget that you come from a superior ideology and a superior culture, right? So you may be living in America, Britain, France, wherever, but you come from a superior ideology, never mind your passport, superior ideology, superior culture. And then he quotes from Iqbal. Now I can't read out the entire set of lines from Iqbal because it's about 6 to 8 lines, and translation will be a problem. But I will just tell you the line that he quotes. I will not the entire verse. The line that Asim Munir quotes. He says, "Apni millat pe kiyas awame maghrib se na kar." That is, don't compare your country or your system with the system in the West. Maghrib is West. Khas hai tarkeeb mein kaum par Rasool Hashmi. That there is something special about the nation called Muslims. Nation that belongs to people of the Prophet. So this is a very crude translation, but he uses those lines from Iqbal to say that Pakistan has a very distinctive ideology. And then he says, don't worry, you hear stories of these terrorism attacks and all that, but we are there. And what does he mean by we? He says that Pakistani army is there. Pakistani army is very strong. That India, despite having an army of 1.3 million, with all the wherewithal they have, I quote him exactly, with all the wherewithal they have, they've not been able to intimidate Pakistan. So what is this 1,500 people of Baluch rebels, Baluch Liberation Army and all that? They think they can take Baluchistan away from us. And then he says Baluchistan is पाकिस्तान के माथे का झूमर है. It's an ornament. Jhumar is an ornament. I think most of us in India understand the definition of a jhumar. You can wear it on various parts of the body. In this case, he says, ये पाकिस्तान के माथे का झूमर है. It's an ornament on Pakistan's forehead. Nobody can take it away. So he answers that insecurity as well. And then he goes on to lay out a little bit of his own ideology. He says Pakistan should be a hard state. Right? Hard state means nobody should criticize Pakistan's security forces and security agencies. And anybody who does so, anybody who belittles the security agencies of Pakistan is an enemy of Pakistan. And once again he repeats, Pakistan needs to be a hard state. Of course, he says it will happen with the constitution, which also makes Pakistan a hard state. This is the constitution. He pretty much got rewritten not long ago. He also says he's attacking now the media and public opinion. Because why is he taking this posture? Why is he speaking like this? Because he goes on also to reassert Pakistan's position on Kashmir, saying that it has not softened, that Kashmir is Pakistan's jugular vein, Sharak. That is something that I have seen from the first time I visited Pakistan. I went to Punjab University in Lahore, and there were posters and there were posters and placards and little hoardings all over the university. I could not read the Urdu, but I saw the map of the subcontinent with a thick vein or artery kind of thing running with blood. And I asked somebody to read out to me what was written. It said, Kashmir, Pakistan ki Sharag hai. So in Pakistan, there is this view, deeply institutionalized and internalized view, that Kashmir is Pakistan's jugular, in the sense that all of Pakistan's important rivers come into Pakistani territory through Kashmir. And if India is in control of Kashmir, India is in control of Pakistan's rivers as well. That is the logic of Kashmir being the jugular vein or Sharak of Pakistan. So he repeats that as well. And then he says today, all kinds of stuff goes on in the media, particularly on social media. And he again quotes from the Quran, and he said the Prophet said in the Quran, the Prophet's written that when you receive some information, it's your duty as a good Muslim to check it out. That's a lecture we give in our newsrooms all the time. It's your duty to check it out, get your facts right. So he says, the Prophet says it, whereas right now the mood is such that people just share information they get on social media and they say, forwarded as received. They see no responsibility, no Islamic responsibility in his case, no Quranic responsibility to check it out, because the Quranic injunction is don't share information until you've checked it out. And then he goes on to say nobody has spoken about Gaza as strongly, Gaza and Palestinians, as the Pakistanis have done, to which my little cheapskate comment is, or my cheap shot comment is, that in that case, why don't you also say that the bomb you have is truly the Islamic bomb? At least the Iranians go and stick their necks out and pay a price for defending the Palestinians. Pakistanis are not willing to do that. In fact, the fact that Pakistani bomb started as the Islamic bomb has been forgotten to the extent J.D. Vance made a comment last year in July 2024. He said that Britain could become the first Islamist, he didn't say Islamic, first Islamist country in the world to have the nuclear bomb. He had completely forgotten Pakistan, because Pakistan has been quiet about the Islamic aspect of their nuclear weapons, because their nuclear weapons are not Islamic. Their nuclear weapons are India specific. So if so strong is the support for Gazans and for Palestinians, why don't the Pakistanis offer some kind of armed support to them? Pakistan also has an army of nearly 1 million people. When I say nearly 1 million, I'm adding all the Lashkars and irregulars and all the others who carry AK-47s in Pakistan. And for the longest time, there have been processions in Pakistan of people carrying firearms and saying we are going to liberate Palestine. In fact, there is a little joke about this, that Sadat Hasan Manto, when he went to Lahore, every day he would see these processions going through the streets of Lahore. 47, 48, that's about the time that fighting over Jerusalem was going on, and Jews were establishing their country. That was the big wave of Zionist movement. During that period, he would see these processions going every day. So one day he stopped them and he said, "Bhai, kahan ja rahe ho?" They said, "Hum Jerusalem ko ya Philistine ko azad karane ja rahe hain. We are going to liberate Palestinians. So Manto said, फिर एक बात सुनिए, रीगल चौक से निकल जाइएगा, छोटा पड़ेगा, right? Why don't you go past Regal Chalk? Maybe that will be the shorter route, because he was poking fun at them. So this has gone on. That is all lip service. Pakistan is not an Islamic state in the sense that it stands for Muslims all over the world or anywhere in the world. It's an Islamic state only to the extent that defines its ideology as anti-Indianism. Now, since I told you a little bit about Asim Munir and his Islamic upbringing, I also did some research on Pakistani army chiefs. And somebody correct me if I am wrong, but I don't see any other chief before him who had such a strong Islamic connection from very early on. This general can recite the Quran. He remembers Quran by heart. He's a Hafiz a Quran, one who's memorized the Quran. Ziaul Haq is the only one with some Islamic connection, to the extent that his father was a Maulvi. But Zia did not have Islamic education. Zia actually went to New Delhi's St. Stephen's College. He became much more of a fundamentalist later in life as the chief. And that's when he discovered the more conservative Islamic side to him. He was not somebody who could reel off verses from the Quran at will. That is Asim Munir. So to that extent, he's sui generis. He's one of a kind. There is one more thing that Asim Munir and Zia have in common. That both of them had their roots in Jalandhar, in what used to be East Punjab, in the part of Punjab that stayed with India. And from Jalandhar, his family also migrated to Pakistan, and they spent some time in the famous Toba Tek Singh, which is again something that Manto has made famous. From there, they subsequently moved to Rawalpindi. And why is he doing all this? Why the speech? Why the invocation to Islam repeatedly? Why the invocation to the Quran? Why the invocation to the Riyasat of Medina? That is very loaded, because Riyasat of Medina, which he says was set up by the Prophet as Riyasat Tayyaba, right? And then came to be known as Medina. It's loaded in the sense that Imran Khan has been repeatedly saying that his dream or his utopia is to convert Pakistan into a modern state of Medina, a Riyasat Medina. So he is also using his Islamic scholarship, in this case, Islamic scholarship and the military uniform, to counter Imran Khan. Because the impression is not wrong, that in the Pakistani army's rank and file, Imran Khan is very popular. Because Imran Khan was much more anti-Indian than the Sharif family. He was much more anti-Indian than General Bajwa. He was much more anti-American than any leader Pakistanis have had for a very long time. And he talked about transforming Pakistan into the Riyasat Medina. But he was not an Islamic scholar. He was not brought up in an Islamic milieu. He in fact had led a very different westernized, conservative Muslims might even call it decadent, in my view, a rollicking Western style life. For him to convince people of his commitment to Islam to that extent is more challenging than, say, for Asim Munir. So the only threat Asim Munir sees right now is from the fact that in the army rank and file, Imran Khan is still very popular. He's trying to counter that with speeches like these. So here is his message to his rank and file, that listen to me, read my lips, and then think, can Imran Khan be as Islamic as me? That is the point. That is how I would read this speech. That said, with Pakistan, you can never say what will happen and what will change. You can say, however, with a great deal of certainty, and I can put my reputation on the line saying that, is that we can say what will not change. So I will take you back to this article I wrote in India Today magazine in 1993. That is more than 32 years ago, 1993. And the headline of the article, what is Pakistan? A comedy, a circus, a soap opera. So those aspects of Pakistani politics and polity are not going to change. And every now and then, some character like Asim Munir, some general like him will emerge and reassert the same facts. The difference with him is he does so with the authority of being personally the most Islamic chief of the Pakistani army in history.